I am Victoria L. Burson. This is Leadership on the Go. Leadership is not always preparedness for the unknown, but it is tapping into the unknown prepared. Good evening, good evening, good evening, everyone out there, Facebook land, link, and YouTube. Thank you for being present tonight. This evening, oh my goodness, sit back because I'm telling you, we are in for a ride, a wonderful, wonderful ride. Tonight's guest, I'm telling you, it's going down like 4 flat tires. It is going to be a wonderful, wonderful conversation with the great, I want to call him the great Reverend Kendal Brown, but we're going to be Kendal Brown tonight. Amen. Amen. And so thank you so much for being present. Listen, share, like, and share and tag as many people as you can. You do not want your friends or your family to miss this evening's conversation. This is an extraordinary leader. When I say extraordinary, he is extraordinary. I mean, he inspires me. I look up to him. He mentored me in ways that he doesn't even realize he's mentoring me from afar, even though we're both here in Baltimore. But I want you to know that this is an awesome brother. This is an awesome brother.
We're very excited tonight to be able to bring in this brother, Kendal Brown.
Good evening. My name is Reverend Kendal Brown. Kendal Brown. I am the founder of 228 Grant Street Candle Company, located here in Baltimore, Maryland. I am also a minister. I'm a musician. I'm a writer, former denominational staff, former church planter. I've worn many hats down through the years, and I'm just excited, Victoria, for this opportunity to be with you tonight and to talk a little bit about this crazy ride that I've been on, and looking forward to sharing tonight, and so excited about what you're doing.
Well, thank you. Listen, I wasn't finished with my introduction, so the enemy is not going to beat us at this tonight. So y'all know when it comes to this virtual platform, anything can happen. So we're glad that we were able to jump back on, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Kendal was being very, very, very nice, but I don't know everything he said, but I'm just going to put it out there, right? You know, it's a little more shyer than I am, but I want you to know that this brother has done some remarkable work in the community, at large, in the community locally. How I am so amazed is that this is a brother who came, steeped in traditional ministry, then the academy, to opening his own company. Now he's a big time entrepreneur. And so we're going to hear about all of that tonight. And he probably said that, and I'm being redundant. I don't care, because I need you to hear about this brother and how much he is inspiring a whole lot of people in the community in Baltimore, outside of community of Baltimore, and throughout this world. And so without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with these questions. Listen, if anything happened, we'll be right back on. Don't go nowhere. Make sure that you let us know where you're hailing from. And if you're watching this, and even if you watch the remix, let us know where you're hailing from. I am in Baltimore, Maryland, but I'm in the outskirts of Baltimore, Maryland. And so wherever you are and wherever you're watching from, let us know, even in the remix. And so we're going to, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started with this whole entire interview. So, Kendal, being a leader who is led by your passion, and you know, passion leads to purpose, how has leadership created a purpose for you?
That's an interesting question. I think I view it from the other way around. Following my passion has just been a way that I have engaged with the world and with community. And it just so happened to involve leadership. I grew up from an early age, knowing that I was called to ministry. It's something that I just knew, like I know the nose on my face, and I knew that that was the path for me. But I had a very narrow view of what that meant.
Mm.
But as time progressed, and as you evolve further and further into your journey, you realize something that I realized is that talking about calling, it's not just a calling, but it's many callings. So it's not a destination, but one calling. I believe in my own journey, my experience has been that one calling leads you to a new horizon. And
Mm.
then when you answer that calling, then that calling will lead you to another new horizon. So it's calling upon calling upon calling upon calling. I didn't realize that at first, and it was frustrating. But once I really grasped that it's really not about the destination, but it's about the journey, and it's about a life of saying yes.
Mm.
And so it just happens for me that my particular journey has been in community, in places, in roles where I've served leader. um, but I don't think that that's necessarily everyone's path to be a leader in that regard, but whatever the path is, it's really about being authentic and true to your calling. And then just by living out your life in authenticity, I think that that is, in essence, leading others, because you're encouraging others and you're embodying what it means to live in truth, to live in integrity, to live with authenticity. So that is leadership.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that. And so I like it when you talked about this piece. You named this whole piece and framed it around having a narrow viewpoint in the beginning, because we didn't know that.
Mhm.
And I too did not know that. I heard Dr. Renita Weems at a leadership conference once said, some of us are answering a call when we should be putting an S on the end. Right. And so
Very
I
much so.
learned that just what you explained from her, and I had to learn it like in my early 40s, right? And
Yeah,
so late
yeah.
in life that I learned. And so, we need to inspire people out there that they have more than one call, and not just focus just because you're getting called, and you said, to another horizon, not to
Hmm.
let everything else go. And that's what I did. I let everything else go to answer this one call. And that was
Right.
a grave mistake. So thank you for framing that for us. I really do appreciate it,
Hmm.
because that is something that we need to hear from leaders. And so we know that your purpose and your passion takes us out of our comfort zone. Describe your transition from traditional ministry to ministry in the marketplace and entrepreneurship.
Um, it's been an ever evolving journey, and I'm still on that journey. And there are days when I still have to make peace with having or being in a place where my ministry is so radically different than what I had initially imagined. Um, I like I said earlier, I only imagined pulpit ministry. I only imagined being in a congregation. I only imagined doing what my uncles have done. My uncles are longtime pastors. One of my uncles just retired. He was the president of the State Baptist Convention in Virginia, well-known Baptist clergy person throughout Virginia and throughout the country. Another uncle pastors near Richmond, Virginia, and it's pretty much all that I knew going into ministry. But as I was exposed in seminary to folks doing very non-traditional kinds of ministry outside of the four walls of the church, my whole notion of what my ministry could be began to shift and evolve. And a number of people have played a significant part of that. One of my mentors, Bishop Yvette Flunder,
Mhm.
I remember the first time going to San Francisco when the church was in San Francisco, and it was around 2000 and probably 2002, maybe. Um, I went to the church and I saw the church, and the church was in a former Union Hall. I think it was a Siemens Hall, and a very nondescript building, not a typical church building. But across the street, there was a home for teens who were housing insecure. There was a home down the street for women who had dealt with domestic violence and who were between living situations. Across town, over in Oakland, I think that there was a housing facility for persons living with HIV and AIDS, and it just blew my mind
Mm.
of of being able to envision that kind of ministry beyond the four walls of the church, and that was a pivotal shift, just to see that fleshed out and to see those things created out of nothing. So that was a pivotal moment in my whole evolution. I've always been a curious person. My family, we one of the things that we did on weekends was go to farmers market, and this is kind of taking a step back. But we go to farmers markets and flea markets on weekends, and I was always curious about those people who, that was their job, you know, going selling their wares in flea markets and farmers markets, and I didn't know that all of those things, were shaping what my life has become.
Mm.
So I can talk a little bit more about how all of those things influenced my journey. But yeah, it's been an ever evolving journey of seeing that there are many paths and possibilities for a life of yes to God.
Mm. Many paths of a life of yes. Y'all hear that?
Mm.
Okay, I don't want to get caught up. So what? Thank you for sharing that and how you continue to evolve in this thing called the marketplace and entrepreneurship out of traditional ministry. But what were some of the most challenging things that came up for you personally and professionally? And what were some of the greatest opportunities in that process?
Um, I would probably reframe it differently now, but when I was in the midst of it, it felt like some things were dying. Um,
Mm,
those dreams and those things that I had envisioned, I viewed it as a death as opposed to an evolution.
mm,
Um, but therapy helped helped with that process. Time helped with that process. Um, some radical truth telling to myself helped with that process. But that was the most difficult part. Um, realizing that some things that I had invested so much time and so much energy preparing for and trying to make work. I planted a church in DC, City of Refuge, Washington, DC, that took off in its early inception, and we we did some amazing things very very early on, and grew pretty quickly. We began with services out in Lanham, near the Green between Lanham and Greenbelt, and we were up to 150 in worship in a couple of years, and it was just an amazing journey. But and I'll be radically honest and brutally honest in this moment. Something that I had worked all my life for, felt like everything had been preparation for starting a church. When I started the church, my desires began to shift and change, and the evolution happened during the first few years of ministry. and I began to desire a life outside of that. And it was one of the most crushing experiences, um, going through that process of having my baby
Mm.
become something that I didn't quite have the wherewithal to continue to nurture, to continue to um, be fully present for. And that was an extremely difficult process. Um, so, I got in some pretty intensive therapy, and did work around that whole process. And it took a while. And honestly, I still have moments of, yeah, that was really painful. And but I have very few regrets, um, with the place that I'm in now, and it makes sense. And I heard years ago, I'm not sure who said it, that there are no wasted experiences in God. And I truly, truly believe that one of my preaching professors, Miles Jones, he
Mm.
helped us with Romans 8:28. He said,
Mm.
the King James translation is wrong. That it's not all things work together for good, but it's God works in all things for good. So it's not the things that are working together, it's God who's working the things. God is working to make the things work
Wow.
for
Come
our
on now.
good. So that has been my experience when it comes to the greatest struggles, in this journey. That it really does. God can make those things work together for good if you
Absolutely.
show up, if you do your part, if you are blessed to be surrounded by people who support you and who can hold you. Um, you can survive that storm.
Mm. So I want to talk a little more. I'm going to dig a little more, Kendall,
Hmm.
here. You talking about
Yeah.
surviving that storm because people who are watching and people who will watch this need to hear that, particularly young leaders
Hmm.
or people who are pregnant with promise, right? And I
Right.
heard you, being pregnant with promise and giving baby, and you carrying this baby for however long, God can be 9 months, God could be 6 months, God could be 2 years, but however long you carry the baby and then you give birth to it, and then the shift changes.
Hmm.
And so talk to us more about that process and that piece right there. I know I hear you when you said the church was growing fast, exponentially, and how you were moving, and then you didn't have the wherewithal and all this other stuff. I mean, I know you're an intelligent person and all of that good stuff, but when life happens, how do you abort what you thought was supposed to give birth to longevity? And what does that process, and how do you transcend while you're transforming? Hmm.
Yeah, I would frame it as along the theme of evolving.
Hmm.
Evolving. How, how did I evolve through that? How did I evolve in that?
Right.
Um, so what it the to be brutally honest, the mitigating circumstances. So there,
Mm.
it was life happened, and life helped to unfold some realities. It's not any stigma or anything for me to talk about the fact that most Black folks living in America deal with anxiety and depression. Um,
Absolutely.
and that was certainly one of the mitigating factors. Was in therapy and trying my best to get well and stay well, but felt like time after time that I was pulling from a dry well. That
Mm.
that the place that should have been giving me life and
Yes.
should have been sustaining me, and that I should have been leading out of that place of fullness and abundance, I just could not stay in that place. I'm an introvert, um, and it takes a lot for me to be fully present in front of people and with people.
Mhm.
I love small groups, engaging one-on-one. I was just thinking about my time as a pastor, both as an associate pastor at City of Refuge in California, and also as founding pastor of City Refuge in Maryland. One of the things that I enjoyed most was after dinner, after church, we'd
Yes.
all go to dinner and just being with the people. Those were some of my most memorable times, and we built and formed community around a table. Um, and the way that I'm wired, uh, having to be, having to turn it on, Sunday after Sunday, having to say something that I felt was inspiring. I have a pretty high benchmark for ministry.
Hmm.
I have been exposed to some incredible preaching, and incredible ministry. So my benchmark is pretty high, and consistently felt like it was not meeting that benchmark for myself. It
Mm.
was it was I don't have the adjective to
Okay.
describe what it was like, but you know, constantly feeling like I was swimming upstream, swimming
Mm.
against the stream. I just got tired beyond anything that I would have ever imagined could have happened, that early on in ministry, and didn't didn't have enough safeguards in place
Okay.
to be able to handle that appropriately.
Okay.
Um, and so, you know,
I,
I the battery went low and stayed low,
mm,
more often than not. So
absolutely.
came to
Absolutely.
realize that I needed to make some decisions, and needed to do what I needed to do to be well. And for me, that was stepping away from this thing that I founded, and it was an incredibly difficult decision. Um, but it was adulting. It was, putting the
Adulting.
big boy britches on and making a decision that was right for me, and the only thing that I knew how to do to live and to have
Mm.
the abundant life that I wanted.
You know what? I am
So,
so
very,
glad for
very
you.
long. I
Yeah.
tend to speak in circular fashion, so very long answer, very,
It's
very
okay.
long roundabout answer. But
It's
that's
okay.
kind of it in a nutshell
Yeah,
of,
we're prepared for
of
your answer, and
being
however
of
you need to
the
answer, however it
underbelly
is.
of that process
Yes.
of moving out of that place and evolving into the next place, into the next thing.
It's okay to respond in a circular evolution because we're talking about evolving here.
See, I've lost audio here.
Okay, so I thought something was going on. Testing 1 2. So while he is getting his, all right, I consider everyone to be a leader. And so as you was hearing Kendall Brown really share, and thank you so much for being so transparent, because people need to hear, even though you are pregnant with promise, sometimes you have to abort that particular promise. And you have to do it in healthy ways that is transforming enough for you. It's so funny that Elder Dorothy and I were talking earlier today, and I didn't realize today was Transfiguration Sunday, and she was sharing, what she preached for her sermon, which was powerful. And we also have to understand that we too have to transfigure while we are transforming. And so you did that. You did that. And sometimes it's an ugly thing to have to transfigure. I mean, Jesus was the greatest example, as she really laid out for us today. And so
Exactly.
we're going to keep on moving. What inspires you?
Um, I'm a creative person, so I can gain inspiration from any number of things. Having the appropriate amount of downtime as an introvert, um, to putz and to soak up an environment, that certainly brings me inspiration. So just stay charged is something that I really need to do. Um, it, one thing that inspired me early on, we talk about Gen Z folks and millennials, but I used to go. I'm still a coffee house fiend, so I spent a lot of time in coffee houses prior to the pandemic. Um, when I have work to do, I go to a coffee house. Projects to do, I go to a coffee house, or meetings. I like to meet in coffee houses. And I'd look around and I'd see people who were either consultants or gig workers, and they'd be working from coffee houses. And I'd say, oh my God, I wish I had the latitude to be able to do that. And just seeing people who created their own path. So people who chart out uncharted, people who go down uncharted paths inspire me. Um, Bishop Flunder, I can't name enough, but the
Yes.
ways, and I've watched. I came on after the first meeting, and so I've seen her create things out of nothing, uh,
Mm,
and just that ability to conceive something in your mind, to have a revelation, to have an inspiration, and to say, "There's no reason that I can't do this."
yes.
We created a program for LGBT seminarians called Project Access, and it was around the table when we were having conversations about the need for additional formation outside of the seminary walls, because seminaries aren't equipped to fully educate folks with our experiences. And we sat around tables and had those conversations about what would it look like to create this thing. And we moved that idea forward, and we wrote grants and made that thing happen. And we were funded by the Ford Foundation, and funded by the Carpenter Foundation, and funded by other organizations. You know, and just seeing that happen, and seeing that those things are possible. And so though being in the company of those kinds of people has inspired me and given me the wherewithal to say, I can do this.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Bishop Flunder definitely inspires a
Yeah.
whole lot of us. So I am appreciative that you bring her up,
Mhm.
because she definitely has inspired me. But we're talking about you right now.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next question that I have for you is, what advice do you have for leaders who might be stuck? You kind of alluded to it earlier, but what advice do you have for leaders who might be stuck looking for something different to do and pivoting into something new and fresh?
I think it's different for each person. All of us hear differently. All of us respond to different prompts, and you have to know the way that you're wired, and you have to know what motivates you, and you have to lean into that. I'm motivated by seeing people do, what it is that I have an inkling that I want to do. Um,
Mm,
I made sure that I was in therapy, that I was in conversation with. I have several business mentors who I run all my major ideas by. So making sure that you're in community and conversation with folks who know this road, who know something about um, the thing that you kind of have an inkling that
Yeah.
you may be moving in a particular direction. Um, and something else, I one of my former bosses in theological education said to me, well, he said it in class, and I don't know if I was sitting in a class one time in the seminary, and he said he had done a lot of work around discernment. He used to be on the track to be a Catholic priest, but he had moved out of that when he came out and decided on a different path. But one of the things that he said is that we talk about the call of God, and this changed my life.
Mm.
We talk about the call of God, and we talk about this call that yokes us, and this call that am I still there? Yep. This call that yokes us and that governs our lives. But he said that we don't talk about the fact that God gives us agency.
Right.
And that God gives us common sense. God gives us innate desires. God gives us preferences. God gives us, things that we deeply desire, that we want to do. And sometimes life is about trusting that the desires that God has given you, that is enough. That it's not always about saying that, well, God, you want me to do this, but I want to do something else. But it's about sometimes you have to make adult decisions about the ways in which you're wired and the ways in which you're not, and then make a decision based on that about how your life should go in a particular area. And that was not part of my formation. My formation was that you answered God's call or you were going to be miserable.
Right.
You did everything. You did everything that God wanted you to do. And I think what's under that is our decision-making ability, because we don't want to be responsible for any consequences. So what we do is we say, okay, God, I'm just going to let you make all the decisions in my life. Because if it all falls apart, then God, it's on you.
Wow.
Instead of saying, there are some decisions that I want to make simply because I have this desire to make it. And I trust and believe that if I make a decision that honors who I am authentically, if I make a decision with integrity, with a pure heart, without waiting on God to say turn right, turn left, turn right, turn left, but if I make a decision based on the information I have, then I have to trust and believe that God will take care of me.
Yes.
In spite, things might fall apart, but I will learn something from that decision that I made. That, I'm not going to be forever damaged goods because I made a decision that I felt like didn't come straight from the throne of heaven. And I'm not talking about making dumb decisions. I'm not talking about any of that, but I'm talking about, I have to make, there's some things as an introvert that I say no to now. Because it requires too much energy for me. There's some places that if I do this particular thing, that it means that I won't have the energy to do this particular thing. So it doesn't mean that the thing over here is not a good thing, but it means that I can make some decisions about how I want to structure my day, how I want to live my life. Instead of feeling like I'm a puppet on a string, that I have to say, oh God, you called me to ministry, so I have to, I have to die empty. I hate that phrase, die empty. I hate that phrase. I don't believe that we need to die empty. I need something. I need something in the tank as reserve. um, I need something that I can fall back on,
Yeah.
and give out of that abundance. But this whole thing that's floating through leadership circles and motivational circles that you have to give your own E. No, 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 no. So another very long answer to a very short question.
Listen, I am enjoying that very, very long answer. And you're helping a lot of people out here, a lot of leaders. It's just not church leadership, it's corporations, organizations, entrepreneurs. It's just this whole notion that because we started something, if it don't work, we have to go all the way through because people are watching, and we become silent people pleasers, right?
Mhm.
Trying to do this, and then we make God. It's like we got to please God. If we don't do this, like God is going to be angry, and
Right.
and fire and brimstone is going to come your way because you decided, no, I don't think I want to do that. And you have choices. So thank you for naming that whole sense of agency that
Mhm.
we do get to have, right? And that we do
Mhm.
have for ourselves. So
Mhm.
in saying all of that, would you do anything differently? Would you have done anything differently?
Um, with the church, I would have taken the time to make an exit plan. I was burnt out, so I saw an exit and I took it. Um, and the church wasn't quite sustainable in terms of its infrastructure. So I definitely would have done some things differently there. Just taken a year or 2 years to really put some things in place and to make sure that leadership was ready to make the decisions, and the church was ready to make the decisions, and to fully own the things that it needed to do to be sustainable. Um, Decisions about really being honest with myself, brutally honest. It took a minute to get to that place.
Mm.
Um,
Can you say a little more to that?
um, really, really owning how dry the well was.
Mm.
Um, I for a good while I said, okay, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. I can prime this pump. I can get this well going again, and did some things to try to make that happen. But I think had I been engaged in some group work with other pastors, other church planters, I think that I could have discerned some things more appropriately, and more fully. Um, I did a lot of that work in isolation, and so yeah, I would have engaged that particular process with other people and in community.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your transparency tonight. It is really, really helping a lot of leaders who are watching this. Don't forget, wherever you're hailing from, please put in chat where you are watching from in the remix. We are speaking with Reverend Kendal Brown tonight. This awesome, extraordinary entrepreneur who went from traditional ministry to being a dean in the academy, to helping and starting his own church, and then now talking about this whole entrepreneurial thing and how he evolved and continues to evolve. And we as leaders need to understand that we continue to evolve into our greatness. We're never at a destination. Anytime you think you get to a destination, then you really, really need to look around you and think differently, because you never, ever just stop. right? And so we're going to keep on moving with this. And so, Kendal, if you don't mind, I know we talked about this whole notion of, and you framed for us a little bit about your creative side and that you're a creative person. I appreciate that because I'm a creative person as well. But how do you move a thing, idea to reality?
It goes back to knowing how I'm wired. So one of the things I do when I'm looking for inspiration, I go out and I walk. I walk. I'll go downtown. I'll go to a neighborhood. I'll go to a track, and I'll just let that idea just ruminate. And it's the way that I write sermons as well. When I'm writing a sermon, I'll get out and just go walking by myself somewhere. But it all, the thing about when women are pregnant and they say, you walk to make the baby drop. that's the way my baby drops, is when I'm walking. So when I'm moving, vision boards, I cannot recommend vision boards enough.
So evidently we're having another technical difficulty with Mr. Kendal Brown, but he was talking about vision boards. Hey, so we're back on, and we are going to hear the rest of the story. Y'all give us an extra few minutes to get Mr. Kendal back on. All right. Well, Kendal, thank you for coming back on.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Sorry about that. Not sure what happened.
That's okay. We in virtual world. Anything can happen. So Reverend Elder Dorothy Paris was, we were talking about vision boards, and I was saying that vision boards are real good, but I learned this new thing called manifested boards. And so I'll share with you about what that is. But for people who were really tuned in about you speaking of vision boards and you can't say enough about that, go ahead and continue from that point of view.
Yeah. So I've learned the importance of naming those desires that are hidden in your heart, and those things that you sense that you want to unfold in your life. Go ahead and put those things on a board. And it's I've made 4 vision boards because I only do it when I'm really inspired to make a shift. And at least 70 to 80% of the things that I put on my vision board, they come to pass or are in the process of coming to pass. And the things that don't come to pass, I can honestly say that it's either because I didn't put in the work or it's because my desires changed. But working at Lancaster Seminary, I had the very building that I would one day work in. It was on my vision board. Like you could see my office, and this was years before. It was I knew that I wanted to go back into seminary admissions work, and Lancaster was the closest UCC seminary, and I put that on my vision board. And within 2 years, I was working there in the building. That board. Crate and Barrel is on my current vision board, and we got what this is February. About 3 months ago, Crate and Barrel reached out to our company and said, we'd like to talk to you about putting your product in all of our stores. And it's unfolding right now. And come mid-year, we'll be in, God will, 3 Crate and Barrel store in the U.S.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah. Oprah's favorite things on my vision board. And 2 years ago, Oprah's people reached out to us and said that we'd like you to send us some product for consideration for Oprah's favorite things. And we made the short list. We haven't made the final cut yet. And I do,
Yes.
but we made the short list, and that was on my vision board. So it has been just thing after thing. So I'm not particularly, some people say that it has to be done a particular way. I say, put something on the board. And, I've just been absolutely amazed. So that's my process for bringing things to pass and into fruition.
Thank you for sharing that. So that people know, just real quickly, what is your board? Is it a piece of paper? Is it a poster board? What is your process of putting it on? Or is it a booklet that's already formulated, or what is it for you?
No, I've found that it works best for me. I tried a virtual vision board, but I didn't look at that enough, and it's not front of mind for me. So I went back to a poster board. So I have a poster board, and I just go through and save pictures, save photos on my phone or on the computer, and then I print them out, and I go through a process of cutting them out and posting them on the board. And it's a prayerful, meditative process. And as I'm doing it, I'm praying and envisioning how those things are going to happen. So and it goes along with my whole creative self as well. So I just love it, and I encourage folks to do it.
Listen, that is wonderful. Thank you for sharing about,
Yeah.
You've already mentioned, I wanted to talk to you about, how you have evolved around failure and pain. You've already kind of spoke to that, a couple of times, how you evolved around there. You mentioned therapy a lot, and I like how you delved into that. But I wanted to, if you want to still speak to how you evolved around failure and pain, but I think you already delved into that. However, I want to know, what has been your greatest struggle with God in this journey as you are continuing to trend forward? What is your greatest struggle with God?
Yeah, the residual stuff of that whole, calling leads to calling, leads to calling, leads to calling. As you age, some things, you worry less about some things. So some of the stuff I'm aging out of, I hope. But in the beginning, it was really difficult to let go. And, the church was my baby, and there was pride, and there was, fear of people hating me, people not understanding me, people saying that I was a failure, all of those things. And, especially Black gay boy stuff. We want to be liked, and we want to stay under the radar, and we want to be okay with people and not rock the boat. And so that whole struggle with letting go, and with letting, not squeezing the life out of something, but holding it with regard, and holding it as precious, but not holding things and holding life in a way that sucks the life out of that I'm holding. That things come to me to pass through me. It's not something that things that come through me don't have to have permanence.
You need to say that again. Things that come through you don't have to have permanence. Can you speak to that angle just a little more?
Yeah. That it's the whole thing about being wedded to the journey, and not to the destination. It's daily bread. give us this day our daily bread, that today's provision is enough. It really is enough, you know, and tomorrow's provision will be enough.
Mm.
And the day after that, that provision will be enough. And that I don't have to hold on to yesterday's provision, but today's provision will be enough. A dear friend told me, I was going through something years ago, and a good friend told me, he said, life will unfold on its own.
Mm.
You just show up. Life will unfold, and it will unfold in a beautiful way. If you just show up. And so that's what it's about for me. It's about daily bread. Give us this day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being present for the daily bread.
And being present for that day. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. I appreciate it. I hope everybody is listening to this. This is some powerful stuff. And we're going to replay this so you'll get to see the whole thing again. Kendal, can you just tell us, what is your superpower? I mean, what gets you going? What's your superpower?
My superpower is my story, is my experiences. It is. I love the scripture, the King James scripture. Hitherto the Lord has brought us to this place. The Lord has brought us. You know, all of these experiences are Ebenezer's. Whatever, you know, Ebenezer is that place of remembrance. Ebenezer in scripture is that place of memorial stones of remembering, you know, how you made it over, remembering all that has happened, that enabled you to make it over. And my Ebenezer is, you know, my experiences with God. My Ebenezer is my experiences with my ancestors. You know, everything that I'm doing is a gift from God. It's a gift from God. It's a gift from my ancestors, and it's a gift from community.
Yes.
It's those three things. So that's my superpower: God, my ancestors, and community.
Yes. And when you were talking about hitherto, you know, that whole King James, okay, we'll have a whole nother conversation about that. But that hitherto word is almost.
I have to say it that way. It makes me quicken. That's the way I need to hear it. Hitherto.
I know it. Listen, I got you. But it's almost that hitherto.
Yeah.
It's almost like a Sankofa moment. You know, that Ebenezer is like a Sankofa moment, you know, remembering or going back to get those things that, you know, we should have never even let go. So
touchstone. Yep.
Yes. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. This is really, really good. Somebody put in there hitherto. Oh, right. Hitherto. Okay. And so thank you for sharing your superpower. And he said his superpower, which I think should be most of our superpowers, is our stories, right? People galvanize around stories, narrations of what can be and what was and what still can be. And so what do you think about success, or what does it mean to you to be successful? Because you're really, really successful, but it's really, really not just making money as success or having a large title, because you've had many titles. So what does success mean to you, and how have you manifested success?
Yeah. For me, living successfully is living with authenticity, living the ways in which I'm wired, and doing my best to unearth that, and to find out what that means, not only what it means, but what it requires, because it requires something, you know, it has a price. So living authentically and living with integrity, which is easy, you know, living in a way in which I feel like I'm making myself proud, making my family and the people that I love proud, and but not just proud, but pride is not the right word. Honoring the sacredness of this journey, of the gifts that I've been given. So living with integrity. And my friend, my dear friend, Ashawn Crawley, who is a professor religion and African American studies professor at UVA. He helps me with that. His whole life is about living with integrity, and
Yes.
reminds me of the tremendous cost of that, and how you have to commit yourself to that every day, to live with integrity, and to show up in ways that honor the sacredness of this life.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. The sacredness of this life is really, really key. And so the last question we have for you for the evening, and I appreciate how you have shown up in this conversation, and the transparency has been phenomenal.
Mm.
So how are you trending forward? This whole thing is about evolutionizing my greatness. Hashtag trending forward. How are you trending forward now? Who are you mentoring? We already heard about one of your mentors, Bishop Yvette Flunder. Who else mentors you, and who are you mentoring, and how are you trending forward? I know it's a mouthful, but I
Yeah.
know you can handle it.
Yeah, I have some business mentors who work in other industries. One of my fraternity brothers, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. One of my brothers started a soap company years ago, and I happened across his soap years ago. He sells at Eastern Market, has been doing that in DC for years, and even before I knew him, I was a customer. But he sells 1 million bars of soap a year, just soap alone, and
Wow.
makes other bath and body products. And just, he's an amazing brother. And every time I call him, he picks up the phone and just gives me wisdom, and he's my sounding board. So I'm trying to do the same thing for a few Black entrepreneurs here in Baltimore. I have a few folks who I've taken and pulled kind of close to me, and because I see that they have what it takes to make some things happen. So we're doing some things together. So definitely trying to give back. I'm trending forward by just trying to show up every day. I certainly love what I'm doing, and this I think is chapter number 2 for me. It's chapter number 2 of my life. My first chapter was theological education and congregational ministry. My second chapter is entrepreneurial life and work, and that's going to continue, I think, for a while. And into my third chapter, I want to do some writing, and I want to record some of the crazy musings in my head, and bring it all together. Bring together. I call myself the contemplative candle maker, and I believe in contemplative work. I believe in contemplative paths. So I want to bring that with being an entrepreneur and being a theologian. Bring all of those things together and do some public theology and writing and contemplative workshops, and help folks get free and help our folks stay free. So that's how I'm leaning into my what's next.
Oh, that's wonderful. We're doing some of the same work. Of course, we're going to be partnering on some things. I believe that in the future. Listen, audience, we're almost out of time. If you have any questions for Mr. Kendal Brown, please put them in the chat and we will get them. I have one question for you. How has this process been? I'm going to pretend that I'm an audience person. How has this process been with, just in the next couple of minutes, how's this process been with you, with your partner, with Bryant Woodard, Dr. Bryant Woodard, working with you in this whole process? And what does that mean to have family working with you in the process? Or do you keep it separate?
So in the beginning, my husband Bryant was very instrumental in just, I needed hands to be able to fill orders and to staff events, did a lot of vendor shows, and I started this work in the kitchen, and And very quickly, within 6 months, it took off, and had boxes in the living room, boxes in the kitchen. I messed up kitchen counters making candles. Fragrance oils will strip a kitchen counter. I did not know that. So yeah, just been very supportive, and I don't know how I would have done this without his support, without the support of my family. My mother has been an incredible support in this journey. When I needed to buy, when I had a big order, didn't know how I was going to fill it, she'd slip me a few dollars, and so grateful for all the ways in which I've been supported. So yes.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And so we don't have any more questions at this time. Listen, thank you. We're going to do some announcements. Kendall, thank you for being here. Thank you for being present.
Thank you.
Let's look at this. Continue to stay there if you will. Let's look at these announcements real quick. For our next show, we are going to have Jamie Wooten and Will Horn. They will be our guests for the next couple of weeks on March 13th. Evolutionizing My Greatness series continues with more greatness, again with Jamie Wooten and Will Horn. They will come, and it says hashtag trending forward, come and learn how two of the most influential African-American men who are game changers share what it means to evolve into greatness as leaders. And we're going to continue this conversation with them. I mean, we started off really good with Charlotte and Tangela. We moved tonight to one of the most extraordinary entrepreneurs in the world that's just doing it, who also is a game changer, Kendal Brown, tonight. And thank you for this conversation. Our next advertisement, Kendal Brown, we thank you for that. And we thank you for our engineer production person who's behind the scene. Yes, we have OG greatness. It's not original gangster, but it's only greatness. And she is specializing in live streaming production, graphic design, and multimedia production. This is her contact information. If you want more, just come to me in an email and we'll be able to do that. You see my email on the flyer. Listen, we thank you again for being present with us this evening. And so we want to get back. Yes, we thank you again. Bring Kendal back on. And we thank you again, Kendal, for being a part of this whole conversation. I am going to have to watch this again tomorrow because your transparency just blessed my socks off. And I know it's going to bless people. We're going to replay this again. Again, we're on Facebook Live, we're on LinkedIn, and we are on YouTube, soon to be on Twitter at some point. And so thank you again, Kendal, for sharing your story, sharing everything. Listen, his product, I want him to take a few minutes to talk to you about how you can get to his product. And if you could do that for us, and just, I know you said it was a lot of stores, but can you just name those like 1, 2, or 3 stores that they can find your product in? I know that you're going to guide them to your website, but just name some things. You know how some of us are.
Yeah, the names always escape me when I'm trying to call them off the top of my head. So the place that has the majority of our collection is online, and that's 228, the numbers 228 Grant Street, and street spelled out .com. 228grantstreet.com. We're in select J. Crew stores across the country. So you can call your local J. Crew store to find out if they carry us. If they don't, ask them why not. And send us an email, and we can, if you go to our website, send us an email and we'll direct you to a place that's closest to you that carries our candles. We're in a number of, it's primarily smaller boutiques across the country. So
yes. And just know he has more than candles. I've had some of his products. Some of his products are soy free. Some of them are plant-based. Some of them, just got soap. He got candles, got stuff. Well, just go to the website.
Yeah. The soaps and other products are products that we partner with other Black entrepreneurs to carry. So they are
even better.
Yeah.
Which is even better. So I've had some of the candles and they are awesome. And they are also soy free based. So just thank you for that. All right. Well, our time is up. And we thank you for watching us here, Facebook Live with Essentials Unleashed, presenting leadership on the go. Join us March 13th. You don't want to miss our guests, Will Horn and Jamie Wooten. All right. Thank you. See you in 2 weeks.